My current role is as an Associate Registrar at the Gallery of Modern Art. There are so many different avenues that I could even go within this space of the gallery institutions. It's a prerequisite of my role that you have a minimum of an undergraduate degree. I don't think anything's necessarily a given. I don't think that, people sort of necessarily stay in the same career forever now. I think people change and adapt. We've seen a lot of change over the last 5 years, even of the types of artworks that are being displayed. Digital is huge now.
Hi, Emma. Thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. And it's great that you are willing to share your career journey and experience with professionals and aspiring individuals, especially the younger generation, to help them to gain better understanding of existing jobs and enable them to make more informed decisions for their next career path. So let's start by introducing yourself and telling me about your current career and how you ended up in this field.
Certainly. Thank you for having me, Parissa. My name's Emma Nemec. My current role is as an Associate Registrar at the Gallery of Modern Art in Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. My journey to get to this career path was really, I kind of stumbled upon it, but it's based on an academic sort of history of an arts degree from Queensland University in Russian and Japanese language, and a certificate of museum studies from Queensland University, and a certificate of communications from QUT. So that is my formal training that has enabled me to get to where I am now. And yeah, further to that, a lot of project management and account management, disciplinary work in the airline industry.
So your current role is the one that you would say you are more interested in, or has there been any other jobs that you thought you succeeded more in?
Um, Look, I don't necessarily say I'm more interested in it. It's what I'm doing now and I love it. But
Mhm.
certainly my maintaining or growing an interest to understanding what I wanted to do was certainly something that grew with me as I grew in life. I think the idea of staying open to opportunities and socializing with people and exploring different opportunities enabled me to get to where I am now. And it's not to say I won't change careers again. So I don't think anything's necessarily a given. I don't think that, people sort of necessarily stay in the same career forever now. I think people change and adapt and a little bit more fluid in what they do. I think there are more opportunities to explore different interests if you have the courage to do so. It's not a career or a job for life necessarily these days if you don't want that, and especially if you don't really know what you want to do. So I think staying agile and staying interested and having courage is kind of part of living. And everyone is different. It's very much a case by case sort of and personality type, yeah, an interest level perspective as to where one would like to go with their career, particularly if you don't have a distinctive trajectory of where you want to go.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, would you say passion had something to do with the career path you chose, especially in your current role?
Yeah, yes, I think inherently what one interests one is you're drawn to that. I think I wouldn't want to work somewhere that I was not interested in some degree in my work life. So yes, I've always been interested in the arts. I've always enjoyed working with people. My job has a very physical element as well as a heavy administrative and PR element. So it does tick all of those boxes. So I think now more than my earlier career roles, I've been more interested in what I'm doing. I think that's just because I know myself a bit better, basically. And I've changed careers, So I circumstance, geography plays a part. There are different stages in one's life. So I think going into it with an open mind and not um, being set in a certain path as a definitive final path is something that takes the pressure off choosing what one would like to do in life. I'm a big advocate of exploring different opportunities, even within the one industry. I mean, in an industry such as the arts that I'm working in at the moment, there are so many different avenues that I could even go within this space of the gallery institution. So, I could go into a marketing realm, I could go into PR, conservation. I work in the registration team. There's the foundational work that could happen. So I think that's also really an interesting thing is to kind of keep a scope on what's available within the space that you're working, no matter what industry that might be. That's and the people you work with can often pivot you and enable opportunities that you would not necessarily have considered before. So I think being people-minded is can sometimes really play a part in innovation and your own future.
That's very interesting. And what you mentioned, it just means that people can have more open mind when they enter into an industry, and they are not necessarily limited to one specific sort of job, or they can look for other opportunities and grow. So, um, with your current career or job, do you think it required any degree? So, how important do you think degrees or qualifications are important for the job that you're doing?
Well, I think a degree is an indicator that you're able to complete something. I think it's, at any age, in any industry, it's a bit of a tick box that says, yes, I have further education. I'm capable of self-motivation. I'm capable of completing tasks. So it's a prerequisite of my role that you have a minimum of an undergraduate degree. And working in the arts, it's very academic. So that's definitely an absolute minimum prerequisite in the registration role. So yes, I'd say that in my industry, imperative that you would have a qualification of some description. I think
Mhm.
overall, though, in other degrees when you're first starting out, I think having, if one can, a more advanced education beyond school years is indicative of, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, the idea that you can commit and you can complete, and that you're not in a school situation doing that, that you're a self-starter, you're doing that beyond the school environment. So, yeah, I think that's important. I think it's also um, adds value to you as a person. So, I mean, it's not always possible to have continued education beyond school. It's certainly a privileged education, and it's not available to everyone. So, I mean, everyone's situation and country is different. But where possible, I think certainly being a student in a formal sense will add value always.
So before entering into this industry that you're currently at, did you face any challenges? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Well, yes, I mean, the arts is a very competitive world. So
Mm.
even just getting a foot in the door is pretty tricky. In my case, contacts were really important. And also, I did work experience for free. So, as a mature aged person, I had another job that I was doing at the time. So, I was able to avail myself a couple of days a week and assist. And that got my foot in the door. So, it's a competitive environment and it's a certain skill set in registration. So, yes, certainly having contacts and having an opportunity to work experience, which I'd advocate if anyone's able to do so, along with study or another job, if you really want to get into an industry or a job to offer your services if you can. I know it's tricky because one's not paid for that, but that certainly enabled me to get into the industry that I'm currently in, was by offering my services and being willing to learn without getting paid initially, and that happened for a good 6 months. So
Oh,
yeah, that was challenging because I was then doing two jobs at the time and I had a family to raise. So it was a pretty busy time. But you pay it forward.
so perhaps motivation had a big part into this as well.
I think motivation has a part in everyone's life and how you want to run it. If you want something badly enough, you make it happen somehow, don't you? And if you don't, you change track, you change course and do something else.
Great. Can you tell us a bit more about your day-to-day tasks that you do every day?
So I run the collection at the Gallery of Modern Art. The
Mhm.
gallery has exhibitions on, and one of my daily roles is to deal with the curators and conservators and move artwork, basically. Um, so we work in a high secure environment, and if anyone would like an artwork, it's my job to get all the documentation signed off and move the artwork with a team of installers from A to B. And that's just one simple part of the bigger role. I also work when it comes to exhibition changeovers. We can have up to 200 works that are being de-installed and installing a new exhibition. So I liaise with the Queensland Art Gallery and make sure any artworks that are in the new exhibition, upcoming exhibition, are brought across to the Gallery of Modern Art building. Another big part of the role is whenever the trustees meetings occur and the gallery purchases or acquires new artworks and they've gone through the trustees meeting and have been approved by the board. I am aware of the new artworks that come into the collection, and the job of a registrar is to accession the artworks, which means to give each artwork a number that's been assigned to it, like a library number, and yeah, to physically apply the number to the artwork, to arrange the packing for long-term storage, to work with conservators to make sure the artwork is packed well and is condition checked by the conservators. So I mean, this is a role where one artwork, for example, I was working on yesterday, has 3,276 parts to that artwork. So the collection as a whole at the gallery there are about 22,000 artworks in the collection, and as I mentioned, one of which could contain 3,000 parts. There's a Chinese artist, Ai Weiwei, and there's over 14,000 parts to that one artwork. So it's a pretty dense job. There's cataloging involved and archiving involved and a lot of liaising between curatorial departments and executive management team to make sure all of the documentation that's going into the system, which is a state asset, is all correct and true. And yeah, and then it's the responsibility to store it. To store it to prevent it from deteriorating in storage over for the future generations. So yeah, there's quite a bit involved in the role. So yeah, it's what I like about it is it's physical. You work and manage teams. There's a lot of admin and there's quite a bit of communications work involved in it.
Sure, you mentioned you enjoy working with people. So, if you want to tell our audience what are the most challenging or difficult part of your work, and what are some of the most rewarding part of your work, what would you tell?
So more recently, we've been working on budget. So working on the budget, forward planning for the year, that's very tricky because you're working with other teams on budget. So You're working with exhibition management and conservation teams to try and determine the budget for the upcoming year. It's often a few just discussions about which area certain tasks or where whose budget will be pulled for certain exhibitions and things. So there's quite a lot of liaising, toing and froing, a lot of big personalities there. So that can be a tricky time. So this first half of the year has been pretty dense already, but after the budget's sort of done, it can be, yeah, it's quite enjoyable. Another challenging part of the role is to deal with logistics companies. So we deal with a lot artwork transport and international art services. So these are external parties who are often transporting our artworks because they're too big for us to do without the gallery van that we have. So we hire semi-trailers and other huge trucks to come in and move the artwork, even just from one building to another. So there are a lot of logistical arrangements that are happening all along the role, the everyday sort of role. So that can be challenging. Sometimes artwork comes in the middle of the night. You know, you need to be at the airport to collect it. That can be quite impactful on a private life as well. So there's a little bit of juggling like any job, you know. There's certain pressures at certain times of the year. So there are blockbuster periods where the end of the year there's always a blockbuster show. So and then in the winter show in June, July in Australia, those two periods for any institution in Australia are the big shows. So you kind of know that the lead up into both of those shows is going to be pretty ferocious and exhausting. So you kind of pace yourself into that period. You need to be well prepared for that. But then, you know, you have the rewards. So the exhibition opens, you go to the openings and it's beautiful and you see everyone dressed up um, and that's, I guess, a reward that you know, it's a great thing to, it's like the show's up and the party's happening and the party will happen for 4 months. The current exhibition, the Asia Pacific Triennial, closes after Anzac Day at the end of April. So once that exhibition's up, it's kind of it's lovely to see people coming in and enjoying the artwork. So that's a big part of the reward of the role, that you walk into the institution and people actually really love coming there. They dress up and it's a day out and it's fun and it's impactful in their lives, and seeing people enjoy that and have art, which is pretty much a luxury, but I think it's a necessary luxury of life. See them enjoying artwork. It's respite, it's meditative, it's intelligent, it engages the senses. I think that's a really huge part of the role that I like, and I like working at this space in the art gallery. It's kind of like a church. It's reverent, it's respectful. It demands people to behave in a certain way, usually. So all of these things I love about it. Yeah, I like supporting the arts. I think it enriches life. So the artist, you get to meet a lot of artists. And a lot of VIPs who are handfuls in themselves, but they, you know, provide a lot of money to the arts. And so it's wonderful to meet these people as well who are providing financial aid towards facilitating this for the public. So there are a lot of rewards. Yeah.
Are there any financial benefits or rewards as well that you think that comes as a result of this job that you're doing?
Not for me personally. In fact, probably I think in private industry, yes, more so. But certainly the Gallery of Quagoma, the Gallery Queensland Art Gallery, Gallery of Modern Art, is a state institution, so it's a government body, so it pays government rates. You know, so it's not, you're not going to be kind of earning big bucks doing this. It's a vocational thing, pretty much, I would say. You're not going to be kicking goals or getting massive bonuses. It's not private industry. You do it for the love of it. people who are there are really committed. They're very academic. The rewards are different to a fiscal award.
You mentioned about some of the challenges that your role could require, one of them being dealing with big personalities or working late at night. It would be really helpful to our audience if you could tell them what sort of skills do you think are required in order to be able to overcome some of these challenges? What are the
Mhm.
main skills that you think are required for your job?
Mhm. Well, I think having good emotional intelligence is helpful. I think being respectful, tolerant, patient to a lot of, personality, to have good listening skills, probably. To listen more than talk is a good thing. To be respectful. Uh, that's always good. It's always good to listen to people because a lot people in different areas quite like talking and hearing the sound of their own voice. So being respectful of that is always quite lovely. Respectful of their position in society, and grateful. So yes, I think having a lot of PR skills is very important.
Emma, could you please remind me how long you have been in this industry?
8 years, 8 years.
8 years. Wow. Can you tell me about the changes you've seen over the years in this industry, and where do you think this industry is heading or could be in the next 5 years?
Certainly. The industry is it very much runs with an economic climate. So for example, the more funding and the richer this community is and society is, the different types of exhibitions all institutions can run. So for example, the previous years we've had exhibitions from the Tate Modern, we've had exhibitions from the last one, Iris van Herpen, a Dutch fashion designer. We've had more recently an exhibition from the Met. So those exhibitions, because they're international ones, require huge amounts of funding and backing from the government. Leading into 2025, for example, all of the shows this year are collection shows. So they're coming from the state collection, the works that we have at the art gallery, because funding it's tight. The economic times are tighter. We can't afford to fly an exhibition over, and this is kind of across a lot of the galleries worldwide at the moment because of the economic climate. That really kind of determines how much spending can be done. So this year, which makes my workload a lot harder, all of the exhibitions are collection exhibitions. So we're going to be drawing from the Queensland Art Gallery collection, which in one way is brilliant because it's a state asset and the public who pay taxes will get to see more of the collection. Because what often happens with institutions is that there's a bit of an outcry from the public that it's no secret that more of the collection is in storage than on show ever. Only 5 to 10% of an art collection is ever available to see. And more institutions are starting to have storage spaces if they're designing new spaces that are visible to the public. So more of the collection, the state asset, can be viewed by the public. So that's an interesting thing that's happening in the design world and the design of art galleries and spaces. So yeah, I think very much so. The future of galleries does depend on funding. I mean, it also affects things like contracts. So a lot of people in this industry work on temporary or casual contracts. It's quite difficult to get a permanent full-time role in the government. Conservators, for example, often are self-employed as well, and they do a lot of private work for collectors. So it's really very much economically driven as to, often contracts will be 3-year contracts, 1-year contracts with conservators, and they're just rolled over if the climate is good. But often people will understand if they don't have a permanent role that nothing's forever and their skill set they'll need to sort of look around or keep an ear to the ground and have contacts close where you can work for private institutions, private galleries, and do some other freelance kind of work, especially conservators in that way. So yeah, it's the arts is it's a state asset, but it's also yeah, it's not necessarily given a lot of funding because it's not an essential item as such, but the asset needs to be maintained. So in times of economic downturn, the funding's cut. So that's a reality that the gallery has gone through. So the idea to get a permanent full-time job is like gold in an industry such as the arts because it's so closely linked to economic climate.
That is very interesting. Does it make the future a bit uncertain, you think? Like, just talking of like, how it could look like in the next 5 year. What do you think?
Well, I mean, what goes down must come up. So I think an economic climate is a cycle. So yeah, I mean, it's depends how you look at it. If you glass is half full and you're an optimist, sure, it's not as great as it was, but there's an exhibition still happening. Some people still have work. I mean, a lot of people still have work. But it also allows for more innovation because if you don't have money, you kind of need to think outside the box a bit and you kind of need to use what you have. So, partly, if you want to turn it on its head and be optimistic about it, we haven't had many collection shows from the gallery. The art galleries, all of the art galleries of Australia and well, worldwide, if you're a collecting institution, you have quite a vault of artworks that you could show that don't ever get shown. I think the big blockbusters from the Tate, etc., sure, they're massive draw cards to the gallery. But if that can't happen, you kind of need to make do with what you have. So being innovative becomes something good and different, and you kind of look you look at what you have, and that's always a good thing. I mean, it swings, doesn't it? I mean, that's life. It's you kind of have to cope and do with what you have at the time and keep planning for the future and work with what you have.
In terms of technology, what role do you think AI or other sort of technologies would play in this industry in the future?
Oh, it's hugely impactful. AI not so much necessarily, but certainly artworks that are on display. I mean, we've seen a lot of change over the last 5 years, even of the types of artworks that are being displayed. Digital is huge now, so learning to work with digital artworks and how to archive them and how to store them. It's very new and very different. So that's a big challenge and a great interest in the role that's already occurring. So yeah, I mean it's hugely impactful. The idea of what do you call it? Not Bitcoin. Yeah, it's ever changing and more technological. Certainly, the footprint because of the climate as well. Digital is bigger, and certainly a 2D artwork that's 10 meters long by 4 meters high. A lot of that size and that's cost involved in that. So the way people are making artwork nowadays is often more digital. In regards to my job. Yeah, it certainly changes the way we catalog. And there are forums, we have the World Registrars Conference that occurs, and conservators also, and sustainability conferences that occur around the arts industries over institutions worldwide that talk about a sustainable future and a future with digital artwork records. It's kind of at the forefront of, well, it's sort of up there with technology. A lot of interactive installations are happening, like the Van Gogh and kind of nighttime exhibitions that are translating artworks into digital things, digital spaces. It's it's quite interesting because galleries also have to make money and revenue and using technology. It has a wider reach. It's it's sexy for the public because it translates well to social media. So galleries are looking at audience engagement and how new technologies will attract audience. So yeah, I mean it's massive. AI, I don't know so much about how that directly will impact um, worlds in my industry. I mean, just on a day-to-day basis, I mean, you can sort of search in AI now and get answers, and it's kind of like an encyclopedia in ways, and certainly people are using it as a tool to understand a bit more about what they might be researching. That's just another platform of exploration, isn't it? So
Yes.
it's not a I don't think it's necessarily going to take over the jobs of a conservator because it's so hands-on, or a registrar because it's so bespoke, but it will be certainly integrated into our working life in ways. Yeah.
Like, we're just conscious of our time.
Yes, thank
Um,
you.
for our younger audience, if there was something that you wish you had known before choosing your career path, what would that be?
I would say if you have an interest in something, to look at a wider a step back and look at a wider scope of the environment and the industry you want to work in because because I was interested in art and I wasn't a good painter or I wasn't great at actually making art. And I think in school, my head was in that idea that I didn't study art at school and I don't create paintings or anything, so I'm not going to be good or I can't work in that industry. I wish, when I was younger, if you have a passion and an interest, it doesn't mean you need to actually be able to do that specific thing. You just need to be able to, um, understand that there are a whole many different aspects to that world. You mightn't be the artist, but you might be the registrar. Or you might work in conservation. You're working with the artwork, or there are a whole lot of different aspects of an environment that you would be good to understand that you can still be involved in a space without doing the thing. Yeah.
Great. So as my last question,
Mhm.
is there a book, a podcast, or a resource that you would recommend to someone who is planning to move into your industry or looking at a career change? So is there something that you would recommend? And if so, why do you think that would be valuable?
Something I read recently is a book by the former director of the Met. It's called Dancing. I think it's Dancing with the Mummies. I'll double check on that. It's like an autobiography of the director of the Met in New York and his tenure there, which was the longest tenure of a director at the Met, I think. Um, and his story and his stories of working in that industry at the time that it did were really fascinating and really exciting. So, yeah, I would recommend that book.
Thank you very much, Emma. I really appreciate your
So
time.
thank you for having me.
Thank you, and bye for now.